Hello and welcome to the Swing Smarter monthly newsletter. This is your host, Joey Myers from hittingperformancelab.com. And with me today is a good friend of mine. And I didn't really get to say his last name correctly. It was throwing me for a loop until David Shanklin, I think a mutual friend of ours. It's Comeaux, right? The last name?
Yes, Comeaux.
Okay.
Yes.
So Lee Comeaux. So for those of you who've read Catapult Loading System, which became a Amazon bestseller in the baseball coaching niche in 2018, you will know Lee because Lee was in the book. He's had a mentorship in my program, namely the hollow position, we call that, and the finger pressure. I was working on finger pressure, I think a little bit, but I was a little bit off base, and he really helped with that. So welcome first, Lee, to the show.
Thanks for having me. Enjoyed it. I hadn't talked to you in a while.
It's been a while, yeah, and it's fitting that it's right before Christmas. So
it is.
So first question, Lee. When we first met, you were really disgruntled with my system. You said, "Hey, you're going to be hurting lower back, all this kind of stuff." And I loved it. And I'm one of those guys that if you can show me a better way, then I'm all ears. And I was with you. And Lee, for those of you who don't know who he is in the golfing world. So he works with golfers internationally. He works with golfers of all types, from professional to amateur, the whole thing. So it's interesting to get his perspective from the golfing world. So tell me, just initially when you first came in and were like, this is really going to ruin backs and things like that. What brought you to that decision, that observation?
All right. Well, let me tell you the story how I got to, anatomy trainings and fascia and things like that. So I quit golf about 2000. Everything on me was hurting. I had a lot of questions from my teachers. One of them was, I tend to hit it with forehand a lot, right hand. Most instructors were using lead arm, left arm. Anyway, they changed me up. I just got tired of hurting, got tired of playing bad, quit. My daughter one night said, "Let's go to the range." We go to the range. I hadn't hit balls in months or years even. I'm doing my thing. The next day she comes back. She says, "Dad, where's the power come from?" Well, I really didn't know. Well, make a long story short, kind of started over. And I was like, I'm going to do it my way this time. So I'm not going to go to Instructor. So I had played in 3 or 4 years. Just started hitting balls on the range, just letting my right hand hit forehand shots. And before I look up, I'm 10 buckets into it. I haven't missed a shot. I feel great. I'm going, what are these things I'm feeling in my body? So I started asking questions. My wife was a massage therapist. Just came home and I'm like, unbelievable. I went to the range. I mean, I took it back however I wanted, swung it down however I wanted, the ball went right where I wanted. But I told her, I'm feeling these things in my body. All she said was anatomy trains. I mean, you might as well say it in Chinese. I'm like, anatomy trains. Off I went. Found Tom Myers, found anatomy trains. Started understanding the fascia of the body. And really what it was how when we're just sitting there, and I'll take my daughter. My daughter had a select career from 8U all the way to 18U, 697 batting average. We kept it simple. The object was just to hit a ball. That's it. Not hit it hard. In fact, when we would go to practice, I always talk about squeezing the last, or what I found was, so I found anatomy trains. I understood the arm lines. I understood the functional lines. I understood why when I grabbed a golf club, a bat, anything, the last three, my hand just clenched it. Mm-hmm. How my hand pivoted, how when we do simple tasks, paying attention to what your hand's doing, your grip, not what does it look like, not in golf, is the beast pointing somewhere, because all those things lead to, it will lead to poor kinetics. It'll lead to your brain and body being confused. The thing that blew me away was my back didn't hurt. Mm-hmm. But I also realized that first night how engaged my knees were. Well, which and what you know now, how the functional lines attach in the knees and come up here and they attach to the upper arms. We're in golf. Everybody's teaching connection. Well, when you learn that your functional lines attach on 3 sides of the humerus and they all connect about right here in the front, back, and sides, it all starts making sense. And why my knees got involved was because it made my lumbar spine move around in time and space. instead of me chunking hips around, and I never was a hip chunker. I was never one of those bought into that theory. Golf's about accuracy. So you had to be accurate. While powerful would be nice, if you ain't accurate, you're not going to play a good score. And when I played college and professionally, accuracy was where it's at.
Right.
So all of a sudden I went from being sore and hurting to not hurting anymore because I was letting my body do things it was wanting to do. Not what that guy saw, what he saw, what even I thought. I'm having results. I think of a shot and hit it, and boom, there it was. I think I'm going to leave it by that. In Texas, we have crawfish holes. I'm hit it by that crawfish hole by the fall, and it stopped right there. And I'm like, whoa, never in my golf life that happened. And here I am. I'm 52 now. This happened, 06, so 14, 38, and found anatomy trains and just started answering all these questions of why things worked. But it also answered why things weren't working, and that you can focus on things that are irrelevant, and that really affects the way all this tissue operates. For instance, and I've never heard in baseball or golf, you never hear them talk about thoracic movement until you came along. It was always turn your shoulders. Well, that's great. They sit on top of your thoracic that pivots unbelievably because we have spiral lines. But if you're worrying about throwing these joints around a rib cage, you're going to struggle. You're going to fight it. And then all of a sudden I realized, turn your rib cage. And then boom, I just started looking like at 52 years old, I hit it further than I've ever hit it in my life because I understand what thoracic pivot is versus I would never tell a student, turn your shoulders, turn your thoracic, because that's what's turning. And as simple as that sounds, it's huge. Again, my daughter, 692 career batting average. Mm-hmm. She went 3 years. She swung for 3 years. Whenever she pulled the trigger, when the bat moved, she made contact. She averaged 954 percentile. When she swung the bat in a 4-year period, she made contact. She may have fouled it. She may have pop flighted it. It didn't matter. But way we trained was when this moved, its job was to touch that ball. Confidence will teach you how to touch it harder and better if that's what you want. Mm-hmm. But what she found was, and just like I told her, what you'll find was you're just going to want to hit it. You're going to want to place it where they aren't, like Ichiro said. And same thing with her. Never hurt, never. It wasn't until later in her career, in her college D1 career, where they changed things up, she started having back issues. But I knew that was going to happen because she knew that she had to do what they said, but she also knew she kind of knew what they didn't know. Mm-hmm. But we knew how to fix it. Thank God through anatomy trains and things like that, you know how to fix it. So I may have went on a little bit too long, but that's kind of the backstory of how I got to that. And then I saw you, and I saw you, and I learned this in golf. I come out in 06, 07 talking about anatomy trains and fascia and pushing versus pulling. And I was on a site called The Secret in the Dirt that Steve Elkington had. Mm-hmm. Man, I look up one night and you look at all the hits on this website, and if there was 1 million hits, 750,000 were my little thread. And I'm some guy in Beaumont, just decided to pay attention to what was going on, to define some parameters of what I call good, listen to what my body was telling me, and then ask some questions. And my wife's genius was anatomy trains. I'm glad that, I look back and I'm glad that's all she said, because she would have said anatomy trains and went into it real deep. I probably would have just walked away and went, yeah, I don't care about all that. But because it forced me for the first time ever to research something I knew nothing about. And I tell people this all the time. God gave you a gift called arm lines. It makes life so easy for a human, for a 5-point human being. That's why you can just throw. That's why you can just swing and hit. It's when we get into the mechanics of what does it do from the bottom of the feet to the end of the bat, where you're not going to bat 692 in a 10-year span. You're not going to not miss one for 3 years because you're worried about, you forced your motor cortex to worry about things that are, none of that has anything to do with moving this other than the limbs that are attached to it. That's it. Mm-hmm. That's why God gave you this and these. That's it. If you had no pelvis and hips and surgery regressed you, opened your eyes in his videos about the guy with no legs and how he's able to propel himself. And when you get into the spinal engine, you know, it's like I tell people, especially in golf, you know, the spine is such a focused on thing. It's probably focused on to a detriment, where it's a curve, it's an S. You're going to slump some days. You're going to be straight some days. And Tiger showed us, and a lot of these straight back golfers are showing. I mean, you look at the spinal injuries on tour, and it's all from you not letting your spine. You got Nicholas, who was what we say, global flexed. You know, these are terms that weren't around in 2006.
Right.
Global flexion, local flexion. You know, Hogan was a local flexion guy. He just swung his arms around his waist. His hand path was around his pelvis. Makes sense? So this is where I was at years before where you got and other people, and you're seeing it more and more in sports. I mean, they're understanding, you got to understand how the fascia in these trains all play, because there's layers upon layers in the body. While somebody listening to this may get a little bit, as a parent, nervous, but if you just leave it to pros and leave it to grip pressures and you leave it to what's my objective, all those other things do their job. And their job in hitting is to hit, to put this on the ball. And how I taught her to do it, because it's like your brain tells you how to train anyone, mainly your kid. So what we used to do was, here's the deal. You're going to get 100 looks tonight. You'll make 100 swings. Wherever daddy throws it, you have to go put this bat on the ball. The minute you miss, we start over. So if I throw it, if she had to jump and hit it, she had to jump and hit it. If she had to step over and hit it, I got her brain wrapped around what is a strike. Because I told her that you're facing. How many times have we seen this? You got an calling strikes here or at the ankles. Well, we practiced in such a way that when the bat moved, it was going to be a strike. Whether you hit it or didn't, you just initiated a strike. She got to where we just saw thousands upon thousands of not misses. And it got to where it became a game in the batting cage. I'd toss it, or I'd throw it hard, or I'd throw it. It didn't matter how. I'd throw it behind my back. Her goal was, no matter how it came at her, she was so focused on hitting it. So I'd throw it, I say top right corner, top left corner of the cage. It got to where we'd have to do that to kind of make it somewhat entertaining, because she wasn't missing. She was hitting it as hard as she wanted. Then we got into, okay, barely hit it, and hit it just to where it barely comes over my head in the batting cages. And that taught her all the anatomy trains in her body. It taught her control. What if you want to just bloop it over? What if you have one of those nights, you're not feeling it, all you need to do is get it out of the outfield, and third base comes in and you win. I can't tell you how many games she won like that. But because we did it, and she did it successfully over, and she got to where she could drop it into buckets, and we did it over and over, and we had fun with it, because the game is to hit, just like the game is to throw, the game is to catch. So, and she never hurt. That was pushing. I say pushing was the key to that. Whenever we push, it's very hard to hurt your back. Whenever we pull is generally when we have most of our injuries as a human.
So a couple things, and I love just listening to you talk, and you know, it goes into different rabbit holes. You covered a lot of different things. So thing number one is swinging without pain. I just had last week, Monday, Tuesday, I had a gentleman come up from Ojai, California, which is down LA area. And he came up, 71 years old. He had contacted me over DM on Facebook. And at first I thought it was a hoax. And then he was legit. He's like, hey, what day? Tell me where to go. Give me the address, blah, blah, blah. So he comes, 71 years old. We started swinging. He read my book. That was the thing. So he read my book. And then he's like, I love it. Makes sense. He's an attorney, international attorney. So it made sense to him, a lot of the language. So he was read every book out there, and a lot of people don't know how to explain it. So he comes, we work on, basically we call it neck pressure now. So it's the idea that the C and the T are creating tension, right? That pressure. So we took him from 51 miles an hour ball exit speed off the tee to 60 miles an hour within that first hour session.
Right.
And the one thing when we talk about safety in the swing was he took a swing and he's like, ooh, my back. And I was like, is it on the outside part of your back, like your oblique, like your external oblique? And he said, no, it's the center. And I said, oh, okay. So I said, let's do this. Let's do hollow. So we call it the pinch, right? We take the belly button, the belt buckle, and we pinch those 2 points together, which is putting that flexion into the lower back, and had him swing, and zero pain, no more pain. So that's number one. So maybe we could talk on that a little bit. But the other thing that you mentioned that I really love, that you gave me a huge idea back in the day, was you talked about Bustos, where she did a video where she had her bat. She had a, actually, was it 3 tapes or no?
It was some was pink, some were blue. She had different videos, but the I think it was pink, the one in her hitting where she hits the girl.
Yep.
The girl,
Yes, the target, right? So she had her girlfriend that was hitting with her was standing out. I think she was hitting for the tee. It was standing out different places in the cage, and she'd have to not only hit the spot on the bat where she had tape there, and I've done it in an S. I think maybe she had it. You had it in an S or something where there was like maybe a 1/2 inch between the actual tape itself, right? So she had to hit it on one part of the tape. It could be the number 1, number 2, or number 3. And she had to hit their target that was out there, which was her buddy that she ended up hitting right in her back butt cheek, and made it really hurt. But this idea that you talk about, that you don't hear anybody talk about this, is hit it on a certain part of the barrel and hit a target. And like you're saying with Goose, it's either hit it up there, hit it over there. It's hit it in different spots, but also hit the part of the barrel. So those are 2 things, both the safety of the swing that I've really learned from you, and then the idea of changing targets and changing spots on the barrel.
Correct. So you take this is a man-made bat. And a bat I've always preferred because of the way it's made, and it just has a lot of inertia value in it. But you take the measurement of the tool you're using, you measure 3/4 of the length from the end you're holding, and the sweet spot is right there. It's a mathematical, it's called center percussion. All right. Now, where I started her was I would put her start at the ball and go, all right, with no wind up. And for the people listening, you can go to Mackenzie Comeaux, MACKENZIE, Comeaux, COMEAUX. She has a YouTube, 77 videos. There's some of her hitting, but the main thing was we start from here. We start from ready. We're not ready to play. The minute we go, the minute this thing lifts, tension, this bout's integrity of tension we need, we go, then it's alive. The same thing as when this lifts, that area lifts, we go. And if I tell you, you're about right here, and I tell you go left, you got to be able to control this and go there. What it taught her is because when you're in a game, you see the hole and you see the guy. Look at the pros. I mean, they all of a sudden they offset. I mean, my daughter if you taught someone how to hit like that and they shifted on you, I mean, and they left field, wide open, you own them. I mean, because now we got into what side of the ball to hit at the left field. It wasn't turn fast to hit the left field. It was hit the outside quadrant, and it's got to go. That was just the deflection angle. You follow? So that's kind of where we went with it, and it was a true game changer. But your anatomy trains your. What I tell people is the human body is learning how much effort to put in something. All right, it can go all out, but it can also, Mackenzie could lay a bunt this far off the plate every time. So that's controlling, that's catching the ball with the bat. She learned how to catch it and drop, just take the inertia in and drop it. I know that it's actually fun when you do it, when you take the time to learn it and do it. It's just like golf, how to hit a fat chip on a fast green downhill, because that's the only shot you got. And I see amateurs trying to spin it, and they got no chance. No matter how much you spin it, you got no chance. You should have fatted it, get it barely rolling, and let the ground do the rest. That was kind of how we treated. And she's taking up golf, so she's really getting my analogies now because she's gotten into golf at 19. But that's anatomy trains. That's the animal in the forest stalking. That's got to turn it on, and that's a human. Humans got the same thing. We have been so joint focused for 200 years, structural focused, when, you know, it's just like I tell people, there's a lining around the bone. This is a simple deal. There's a lining sac around the bone that allows this arm to do. This looks goofy, but there are no biomechanical descriptions for that. They don't know how that happens. If you ask somebody about what makes that go in those directions, they don't know. Well, it's that tissue, it's fascia, it's your ability to just think it and do it. That's the beauty of it.
Well, what I love about what you bring to this from the golf world is precision, right?
Yeah.
You're talking about an industry, as you know, this industry, baseball, softball, it's more so baseball, but softball too, is this idea of hit the back top third part of the cage, launch angles, hit it hard, launch angles, launch angles, launch it. So it's this push for aggressive swings all the time, where I think is lacking is the precision side, and that's where you come in.
Okay, so here's a challenge for everybody that listens and follows you. So I used to tell Mackenzie, how easy can we swing at it? Because what you come to realize is the moment of contact between the two, when this bat touched the ball, like in golf, I told her and Daddy, the moment I felt the ball touch the face, I could accelerate. Now, that was something I always had. And it just for that little bitty golf ball distance. Same thing with the softball or baseball. But how, lack of a better term, how easy can we go and still get this out the park? And then what was the bottom limit? What was the top limit? And she learned from things like I shared with you, 45-degree launch angles. You can go very, very slow, but if you have a 45-degree launch angle, that's optimum projectile distance. So all of a sudden she went from and I don't even remember bat speeds, but just say she could probably at about 35 miles an hour at the right launch angle, get it out the park, which isn't a whole lot of bat speed, but you can't quit on the hit. You got to drive, you got to create the inertia to get the ball out. And she started understanding the differences. We've all hit a hard ball versus kind of hit a ball and it was fast and quick and it just had nothing. I mean, you see a lot of kids that make this contact and the ball just kind of fizzes off of there. And look, you put them on video and it looks like they just nailed the center of it. But what happens is they let go, they kind of let go of the grip pressure. They let go of these, they think it's over with because they practice so hard at quit at impact. We practice, that's why I started at impact through. Impact is sort of like punching. It's what you do. Once you make contact, all the damage is done by keeping going. Catapult system. The catapult has got to keep, the catapult don't quit. I mean, that thing is, the slings are, the ball's way past the mechanical point. The cables still have it. And it's, once it all the way stretches forward, it launches it. It doesn't let go when it passes the two prongs.
Right.
You follow me? So, I mean, it's all about getting all the energy out and inertia out. And that's kind of how, that's anatomy trains. That's how you save your back. That's how you quit. You know, it's like I tell people, I hear it all the time, you know, turn your hips. I said, all your pelvis is doing is taking your lumbar spine. If this is the back of my lumbar spine, when your pelvis moves, it just rotates. It's what lets your lumbar spine move 45 degrees because it only has 1 degree of motion. So if I want my lumbar spine to look that way, my pelvis better move that way. Make sense? It has nothing to do with power. It has everything to do with safe lumbar movement to have a lot of what looks like motion, because the more, here's what anatomy trains, and the more motion you have, the better you are. You have to open up areas of joints and able to move through the joint. Where golf, the dynamic X, where we're trying to hold a pelvis still, and we're trying to, can I do that? Sure. That's really on a short shot. That's really on I'm just trying to get it through the outfield. And in the and I tell people, everything we do is a catapult system. Our optimum human performance is a catapult system. No matter we're fishing, if we're tennising, whatever we're doing, we're trying to move an object with a stick or something outside of us. But the key, and here's a term I never hear, but what I call it, the right angle feet. Right foot like this, left foot's going to be like that. And it can be anywhere. Golf's no different. When I'm playing a golf, my right foot's square, my left foot flared out. And why? Here's why. The minute you do this with the lead, the minute your foot steps, if you hit against a spine with feet like this and pelvis like this and hips like this, all the tension from all these diagonal chains in your ipsilateral is all going right to your lumbar. The minute you, for y'all listening, go home tonight, open this foot up and then turn. You take all the pressure off of one side of your back. Bye-bye back pressure.
Yeah.
All right. And if I go bye-bye back pressure, guess what? I have a spinal engine telling me, how much do you want? How much can I give you? And your only limit, I used to tell people all the time, I ask people this number one question I'm going to ask the people listening. Where's the power come from? I'm going to give you a minute to say it or think it. And the answer is simple. It's your glands, your adrenals, your thalamus, all these glands you have to release this energy. That's the days when I, as a golfer, or me as any athlete or anything, whatever, no matter what I'm doing, have optimum power management and optimum power results for the given situation. It's not, you can work out till the cows come home, but if those things are not moving, fluid moving, and again, that's why we curve the spine. The things I learned, when the spine curves, we hit certain buttons that help certain glands activate for us to be our best us. Your job is to, or our job is to learn how to, okay, I want to hit it out the park, but I really need to get this just over the second baseman or just out of the infield because I need to score the guy on third so we win the game. Because I take a chance at hitting out of the park, striking out, pop flying, fouling out. And that's where my daughter got good at sending it on the ground. We practice trying to hit it and skip it off the earth as hard as possible. You know how many times she skipped it over a second baseman's head because she just practiced beating it, or over the pitcher's head? I mean, you run out of things to do when all you're worrying about is making contact. We learn all these ways to control the contact, to get a result, to get on base, to either score somebody. We practice how to fly out to right and left field to score somebody on third, hit it deep. You know, everybody thought, oh, she flew out, but to her, I scored the guy on third or the lady on third. That was her job. That's where you go with this. Once you learn, once you're pain free and once you can focus, you're not worrying about these things. You're not worrying about icing down for the next day. I mean, we never ice down. We got to have fun. We got to have a career that's legendary around here. You know, it really is. I mean, you follow it, you saw it.
Yeah, no, it was unbelievable when we talked about this idea that they're used to hitting 300, 400. They're not used to hitting 600, 700, 800, right? And one thing that came to mind when you were talking about the lower back taking pressure off by taking that front foot and opening it up a little bit is think about when, you know, at a bar, you have that bar stool, you have the bar stool and then you have the little bar at the bottom for the foot, right? So that was meant so that when got your arms up on the bar, and you know, these guys been there for hours drinking, talking, singing, whatever, and you're standing for lengths of time with your feet like this. Well, that little bar at the bottom there is for you to pick your foot up, put it down, and most of the time it's in that position, right? And another scenario is you're laying on the couch watching TV where you're laying back, not laying, laying kind of propped up, and you have both legs straight out this way. Well, what do you do when you start to feel your back getting tight? Is you'll bend the knee and you'll shift out this way. One side, you'll bend the knee and go out the other way to take
your valgus knee. Back. Right, and it's because the bottom of your feet are. I mean, now you get in the deep back line, which starts right here in the forehead, runs over the top of your head, the bottom of your feet. And this is where people in golf. I get where people in golf are doing the spine and doing alignment and square because it's based off of the deep back line. These are all things that God gave us as a gift to perform best, but also to fix ourselves when we do ache and we do pain. And it's just like my daughter came to me one day. We were, I don't know how long into this, and she goes, I'll never forget this. She goes, your femur head. And I'm like, what do you mean your femur head? She goes, because I told her one day, I was like, your femur head, the reason your front foot's open, you got your femur head sitting here and you're sitting here just like that with the pelvis. And all of a sudden one day you're going to feel this thing kind of slide and move. And what's happening is people throwing their pelvis and hips, they're kind of, all these femurs are everything's getting all torn up. That's why Nicholas repaired his hip. That's why people have bad hip injuries or their hips get worn out because they're trying to spin them and they're getting all mangled. And all of a sudden one day you'll feel it slide. I mean, I'm on the range one day and I felt mine it's a ball joint. It slid. I went, I'm pivoting around this joint with that foot being that way, with the pressure to where this thing can move. And the ligaments around your femur head are probably the strongest you got. And it was like, things just started. She went, I get it. I said, you get it now? And she's like, yeah. I'm like, it's because she was actually daydreaming while she was at batting practice. You know, she was just like, got bored of what to think about. She said, felt it. I'm like, there you have it. So, and she was hurting a little bit. I mean, she had been, at that point, I think some of the college coaches were trying to get her to do the hang back, lag it, throw it all out the last second, you know, whatever that means. But yeah. So
crazy. Well, hey man,
yeah, it's like reverse catapult, hit the brakes, work your ass off to go nowhere to get it. You went from barely swinging and hitting over the fence to now you got to go work out just to get it to the fence.
Right. Well,
Makes sense.
It's hitting with the emergency brake on.
Yeah. Oh, very well put. It's hitting
right.
Hitting in park. Yeah, I like that.
Well, hey man, I know we could talk all day, and I would love to listen to you all day, but I want to be respectful of your time. I got a hard stop here in a couple minutes, but I wanted to ask you if there's anywhere that you want people to go to find out a little bit more information on you. Maybe there's some people that will see this that are golfers. Maybe you want to look it up in Texas.
Well, I mean, you can Google me, Lee Comeaux Golf, and I basically got a little video, a little YouTube site now called Making the Divot, and I try to. For golf, you got to keep it simple. It's just aiming your divot because it's an aiming sport. For what you do, the good thing is you don't have to be an aimer. You can start where if you keep in the lines, and to be a 600+ hitter, you start focusing on exact spots. And the Chiros of the world, that's what they did. That's why they had the hits they had, and that's who they were. And I think people that come here, that's what they all want to be. I mean, we all think we want to be Barry Bonds with the home run record. We really want to be a Chiro with a long career. And how many pitchers you think just when he came up there, like, I got no clue how to get about this guy?
Yeah, right.
I mean, that's what you want to be.
The idea of them striking Ichiro out or even getting him out didn't even enter their mind. It was to minimize the damage or to get him to go someplace that they didn't want him to go.
And look, and Chiro was a pure fascia guy. I mean, he said it a lot. You know, you have to have soft muscle, and you get that once you realize what soft muscle is, and when the fascia melts and all this stuff is working in your favor, and you see it on high speed all the time. You'll see the tissue in the arm just flapping around. That's us. That's us at our best. And it's always a high end athlete you see it in, and that's why he had a cannon like he had. That's why the guy could run this fast. I mean, this dude performed at a high level, catching, throwing, and hitting. I mean, if you look at the complete package, and why? Because the guy obeyed his anatomy trainings. He kept these squeezed. And it's the same thing in the feet. My daughter, when you squeeze these three, the same thing happens in your feet, and we become a supple leopard, like a lot of people talk about. And like the older gentleman came to you and he learned it's about, there's so many blocks we put in our way because the way we just stand there really, and I like what you're talking about with the head pressure this way.
The neck pressure.
Golf, it's weird. Golf is one where you see it in opposite, where they're looking at, you know, a lot of people torque their head this way so they go. And what that is because their thoracic's trying to make the biggest motion possible and all the tissue connects around the head. So if I turn this, it allows me more.
Yep.
It allows me to turn my thoracic. That's all it is.
Right.
Unfortunately, it gets very confusing if you want to go this way.
Right.
So I'm more of a guy this way because I know I'm playing. That's where I'm going. I understand all this, and I want to compact golf swing, so I turn mine this way and keeps it. So it's no different than baseball.
Absolutely.
You know, well, hey, I appreciate your time. I appreciate you reaching out to me. 2, 3,
4. Yeah, I love listening to you talk, and I always learn something new. So tell Mackenzie, aka Goose, tell her we missed her, and Merry Christmas to you guys out there in Texas, and think about us in California because we need all the help we can get with our government.
Will do. Big fan. Wish you the best for 2021. Keep doing what you're doing. You're gonna. I told you this a long time ago. Your day's coming where you're gonna be the guy. They're all going to be chasing you. So
Yeah.
have a great Christmas, my friend.
Thanks, brother. Keep up the good
Yes,
work
sir.
yourself.
You too.
All right, Lee.
Bye-bye.
We'll see you, bud.
Yeah. Bye.